including Powell speaking later today, roughly 2 o'clock, with a 75 basis points increase expected from Jay Powell. We will talk Albemarle County leasing the J.C. Penney location in Fashion Square Mall. And this is not a cheap scenario Albemarle County is getting itself into. You're looking at $3.1 million to renovate the space and $560,000 for year one on a 10-year initial rental term. So what you're looking at darn near close to $10 million here. Every year the rent is going to increase. So you're looking at a $10 million arrangement the County of Albemarle has entered. We'll talk about this deal today on the I Love Seaville show. We will also chatter McDonald's increasing the price of a cheeseburger and tourism in Richmond just really getting the benefits of sports tournaments and how it's driving the economy. Sports tourism is having a tremendous impact on this community. All those topics and more, guys, on the Wednesday edition of the show. Danny O'Day will join us on the program as well, an author who always has a strong take for us, a regular listener of the show. He will join us in about 15 minutes on the broadcast. Judah Wickhauer is the director. We'll have the 2-shot ready to go and then the 3-shot. Judah Wickhauer, we can start the program. Judah, when you're ready, why don't you give me 5 seconds and we can rock and roll. Good Wednesday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love Seaville show. Thank you kindly for joining us. A pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love Seaville network, a network presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary and powered by the Clifton, the best dispensary in Charlottesville. Skooma in the downtown mall and on Alleywood Avenue with 2 locations. And we give props to our friends at the Clifton for a phenomenal dining experience, cocktails, quality service, and just one of the best nights out. Think the Clifton, about 10 minutes outside of the downtown mall of Charlottesville in the Keswick area. A lot we're going to cover on the Wednesday edition of the program. Our friend Danny O'Day will join us in 15 minutes, the author and a man always ready with the take, which we enjoy and appreciate from him. First, I want to talk about a couple of items I saw yesterday. I watched as the Biden administration in a presser yesterday was pretty much redefining the definition of a recession. And I understand politics is about managing perception, and politics is a smoke and mirrors game. And undoubtedly, when you're playing with definitions of words like recessions and you are splitting hairs with the definition, you are playing the smoke and mirrors game and the perception management game, and maybe that's what politics is in 2022. From my standpoint, you address Americans in a very difficult financial time of their lives and be like, it's tough, inflation's at an all-time high, it's not going to get any better anytime soon. We're doing the best we possibly can to make this more affordable for you and to drive the cost of goods down. And you show authenticity, and you be genuine, and you fall on the sword if you need to, and you utilize language from an apology foundation. You don't play the smoke and mirrors game when folks are basically struggling to fill gas tanks, put food on the table, and meet monthly overhead. So I wanted to start with that. I was frustrated to see the administration kind of play this shell game with definitions. A recession is something that will undoubtedly impact those on the financial margin, those struggling to maintain employment at a much greater clip than those that have home ownership under their belt, deep positions within the indices, and free cash flow. So this is a sticky, a slippery, a difficult time for so many. I wanted to start with that. I also want to highlight a phenomenal show we did yesterday. I encourage you to go to iloveseville.com to find the archive versions of all episodes. But yesterday's, I thought, really hit close to home. We talked about the gender-neutral bathrooms coming to Hanover Public Schools, an elementary school in Hanover County about an hour from here. And the last 2 days of covering that has resonated with a lot of viewers and listeners. And I appreciate you reaching out and letting us know about that. Do I expect the gender-neutral bathrooms to hit Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville? Yes. Yes, I do. We may talk about that with Danny O'Day today on the program. I want to highlight Albemarle County leasing the JCPenney facility in Fashion Scare Mall. Albemarle County is going to lease the space at $560,000 for year one. It's a 10-year lease. Each year thereafter, the rent increases. Albemarle County is estimating $3.1 million to renovate and rehab the facility. And then Albemarle County is going to put kind of a public safety operations center in the JCPenney spot in Fashion Scare Mall. It's going to be home to their fleet of vehicles. It's going to be utilized for parking, for maintenance, the storage of emergency vehicles, as well as other functions. You'll see fire trucks and ambulances and storage gear and fire and rescue personnel, and the trucks and the vehicles that we see Albemarle County utilizing to run the jurisdiction. Initially, the price tag of $3.1 million for renovation and another $560,000 for year one in rent is going to astonish some people, shock some people, take some people aback. The socialist community in Charlottesville and Albemarle County is already throwing shade to the Board of Supervisors for doing this. They emphasize, parking is increasing at the parking center. We're building more parking spaces. Woe is me. Last I checked, if you're going to house a fleet of vehicles for the jurisdiction, you're going to need parking spaces for them. Last I checked, Fashion Scare Mall was a ghost town and literally doing nothing. Would we prefer the building and the structure to stay empty in ghost town form, literally in the urban ring, a massive building doing nothing? Or will we instead prefer that the County of Albemarle utilize this structure as a headquarters to run the jurisdiction? What is wrong with this concept? What is wrong with it? Albemarle County has said we need a building and a structure like this, and if we were going to build it from scratch, it would be exponentially more expensive. So instead of throwing shade on the county, realize what the county is doing is saving taxpayer dollars in the long run. If you build it, it costs more. Instead, they're repurposing a piece of property that was otherwise empty. The common sense missing from so many in this community is tangible and palpable. Donna Price, the Board of Supervisors chairwoman, highlighted this decision in a nutshell. If we were going to build this from scratch, it would be way more expensive, and the county needs this right now. There's your answer. We'll open up your take, your thoughts, your perspective, your opinion on the County of Albemarle spending $3.1 million to rehabilitate and renovate the JCPenney and another $560,000 in year one to lease the space. It's a 10-year term. The County of Albemarle has already said the facility would have cost 5 times more money if they had built it from scratch. Yet Twitter Charlottesville is up in arms at the county doing this. All right, next topic I want to cover on today's program. James Watson sent me this. James Watson's the king of orbit. He forwarded me a link via LinkedIn direct messenger about sports tourism in Richmond. Sports tourism in Richmond, according to the Richmond Regional Tourism Body, is having an incredible impact on the jurisdiction. Jack Berry, the president and CEO of Richmond Regional Tourism, was quoted recently by NBC 12 as saying this: sports tourism is definitely our best market now. It used to be only 25% of the market. Now sports tourism is 80% of a market in Richmond. Sports tourism generated $37.7 million this year alone. Tournaments in the capital of the Commonwealth. I ask this and bring this topic up on the show because I want to ask you, the viewer and listener, regional tournaments in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, where are they? Why do they not happen? Why, with the University of Virginia in our backyard, an athletic department that prides itself in recruiting student athletes from the Commonwealth, why are the counties, why is Albemarle County, the city of Charlottesville, and the University of Virginia not working in unison to attract regional and national tournaments to Central Virginia? Can anyone that's watching this program, listening to this program, name one, name two regional national tournaments that happen in our backyard on a year-in, year-out basis? Guess what? You can't, because they're not happening. I've said on this program time in and time again that if the County of Albemarle and the City of Charlottesville truly want to create affordability for their citizens, they need to find a way to fund their respective jurisdictions without taxing personal property and rooftops, houses, personal ownership. Because if your primary sources of income are rooftops and vehicles, then you're making the community more expensive and more difficult for millennials and younger to get to be a part of the community. And that's what's happening. You have assessments increasing, personal property taxes increasing at a time when inflation is off the chain. Politicians scream affordability and they say this area is for everyone. I say that's BS. And I call them out on it. Because you don't raise taxes and maintain a commitment to affordability. Those are contradictions. So why don't we think incrementally with tax sources, and why don't we work with the mindset of a small business owner? And why don't we form a JV, a joint venture between Albemarle, the city, and the University of Virginia, and let's get sports tourism in the works. Because Richmond is generating $40 million a year from having youth soccer tournaments, youth football tournaments, youth basketball tournaments. How is the city of Charlottesville, Albemarle County, getting beat by Richmond when it has the University of Virginia literally in its backyard? Can someone explain that to me? $40 million, to put that in perspective, that's 20% of the city of Charlottesville yearly budget. The yearly budget, the city of Charlottesville, right around $200 million. You want an extra $40 million? An extra 20% of top line revenue? Have some freaking flag football tournaments. Some soccer tournaments at Dardentown. Get the University of Virginia to utilize its athletic fields to host tournaments in conjunction with you. Allow the coaches to see athletes in middle school and in high school as a recruiting tool. What better way to showcase the University of Virginia than having a tournament over a 3 or 4 day affair? This seems like common sense, does it not to you? One other topic before we welcome Danny O'Day to the program, and we're going to start with this with DOD, the atomization of American culture. Have you noticed from your bank statements how many monthly subscriptions you have on them? Whether it's Netflix, whether it's Blue Apron, whether it's Amazon Prime, whether it's getting clothes in the mail, whether it's the subscription packages. Hell, we learned last week that BMW, the luxury automobile manufacturer, is now offering a monthly subscription for heated seats. You want a luxury BMW in Europe, and you want heated seats in that? Well, fork over a monthly fee to BMW to get the heated seats. We'll talk about that on the program, but before we do, I want to highlight this for you. McDonald's, the Golden Arches in Europe, for the first time in 14 years, is raising the cost of the cheeseburger. The cheeseburger in Europe is increasing today 20%. 20% in Europe. in the UK specifically, because McDonald's is struggling with inflation just like all of us. You got a brand and a business that has economies of scale, probably seen by few other brands and businesses in this world, and that's McDonald's. You have a brand and a business that's arguably one of the most iconic. Can you think of a more iconic logo than the Golden Arches? What? Maybe the Nike swoosh? What's more iconic than the McDonald's Golden Arches? Off the top of your head, from a immediate recognition standpoint. My wife and I, we drive with our son. He sees the Golden Arches somewhere and he goes, McDonald's, Happy Meal. McDonald's, chicken nuggets. He's 4 years old. There's few more iconic brands or businesses than McDonald's. And when a brand or business like this is increasing the cost of a cheeseburger by 20% because it's straight up saying we cannot manage these inflationary times, we have to pass the cost on to the consumer, it shows you the predicament we are in. And I'll get back to how I started the program. How do you, if you're the Biden administration, try to smoke and mirror the definition of recession when we all go to the pump, gas, the drive-through McDonald's, and we see a 20% increase in cost of goods like we're seeing now with the cheeseburger? I asked that question fairly and straightforwardly. It's not rhetorical. Maybe that's why the approval ratings are at such a low point right now. We're live on every social media platform known to mankind. Danny O'Day, we can get you on set now. I'm very excited for you to see this published author for a second time here on the I Love CVille Network. Judah Wickhauer will get that 2-shot, that 3-shot, and that studio camera ready to go. Neil Williamson, Travis Hackworth will get to your program, your comments here in a matter of moments. We have 4 states watching the broadcast as we speak, with comments coming in on Spotify and iTunes. First, good afternoon, Danny O'Day. How are you?
Doing real well, Jerry.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
Absolutely. Hey everyone on the I Love CVille Network. Danny O'Day here. Pleasure to be in the studio with Jerry and Judah. Published author of The Last Man in Cleveland. Novel came out 4 months ago. And currently work at Politico.
Smart man, well-read man. Where do you want to begin? I want to start with the comment that you left last Tuesday on the network, and I remember the day because Alex Erpy was on the program.
That's right.
It still resonates with me, the atomization of American culture. Explain that statement, the atomization of American culture.
Right. So I think a fair analysis of how we currently live our lives is that this has increasingly become a society of renters in all senses, not just in homes, but in every way we interact with our world, whether it's, no one owned, I don't want to be like the old man in the room yelling at the cloud, like the Simpsons meme, but like who owns a CD, who owns a book? People read Kindle, listen to audiobooks, they will rent their media, and I think it would be a mistake to see this as a new phenomena and not the natural result of many, many decades of a concerted effort to kind of separate American society. And, like no one who has been a part of this has been, like a guy in a smoky room twirling their mustache. But it was a series of, I want to say, very logical and profitable decisions that did very well for a lot of people. And has left the rest of us in a society where we feel increasingly isolated, increasingly atomized.
How old are you?
26.
26 years old. Beautiful girlfriend.
Beautiful fiance.
Beautiful, congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful fiance. Great job for both you guys. She an educator?
She is. She's a teacher, elementary school teacher.
She's a teacher.
That's right.
So you have highlighted on the show, and I appreciate you for doing this because it shows vulnerability. The plight of a mid-20s living in Charlottesville, from a rental, from a transport, and a home purchase, and a living standpoint.
That's right.
When you were last on the show, the economic environment was very different.
That's right.
How has it gotten more difficult, or has it gotten easier?
It hasn't. I love when we're doing real talk in the morning. I'll throw in a comment if it's a realtor that I haven't seen very frequently, and I say something like, "Hey, as like a young 20-something, where can I look in Charlottesville to start purchasing my first home?" And the responses are always like, "Well, you can look in Waynesboro," and I always have to laugh because, well, that's not Charlottesville, is it?
And you want to live in Charlottesville?
That's right. That's right. It's a city that I love, a city that I've given a lot to, and I want to continue to be a part of the community. But the truth is that, the last time I was on the show, I said that next up and coming neighborhood is going to be 10th and Page.
You live there, right?
I do live there.
Yeah.
I rent there. And I wish I had been wrong, but a couple of houses went up for sale in the neighborhood, and we went to go tour them. 2-3 bedrooms, 1,900 square feet, $580,000.
Man, $580K, 10th and Page.
That's right.
For what is otherwise an entry house.
What would be, and these are houses that were bought within the last 18 months for $200,000-300,000. The house, like the last one that I saw, was bought for $250 at the beginning of January and is currently up for $580.
So what's the plan? What do you guys do?
That's a great question. We're saving. It's tough. You have to spend some time. You have to be really, really diligent about setting out a budget. But that's part of it, right? Like to bring it back, a society of renters, there's money flying out the door every month, and not for things that we can't afford. I work from home. Wi-Fi, increasingly, I think for America, is a must-have, not like a luxury good anymore. I need that to work from home. And I suppose I could move back to DC, but then costs everywhere else start to skyrocket too. So Wi-Fi expenditures, everything is on a monthly payment.
Do you feel, you grew up here, you grew up Western Albemarle?
That's right, I grew up near Crozet.
Near Crozet. Do you feel like the community is turning its back on you? Or do you feel like this is the pledging, if you may, a fraternity metaphor that is needed in your 20s to then climb the economic totem pole, if you may?
Sure, that's a great question. So I would say that I feel like everyone says, in my day it was as hard as it's ever been.
I don't buy that.
I don't buy that either.
Yeah. Because student loan debt's worse than it's ever been.
Student loan debt is worse than it's ever been. Rent as a share of income is higher than it's ever been. Average wages haven't grown since 1982, especially relative to inflation. Now, I was staring down the next 5 years about a year and a half ago, thinking, okay, this is great. I've got my timeline in check. I've been building up some savings. I'm ready to go. And then the housing market in the community that I wanted to live tripled in value. And, growth may be slowing, but growth slowing is not a decrease. It's not a deflation. It's just a slow in acceleration. And it's still going to keep going up.
Well said. Great take. So the community, you feel embraced?
I feel like there are people in the community who really, really, really want us here. And I don't think that they know how to do it. And we don't know how to do it. I do feel though, like you say, there are ways that we do feel pretty left behind. Yeah.
I'm curious of your take, because the comments are coming in. Neil Williamson adds this, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. He says, by leasing the building Albemarle County rather than purchase, this commercial property stays on the county's tax rolls. A very good point. Another point that I want to highlight there. Mm-hmm. Travis Hackworth is watching in Danville. At least they're using the space. Malls are a dying retail model, and many sit empty across the United States and become blight and a safety issue. They're using existing space to decrease costs. Can you imagine building a comparable facility in the existing market with supply shortages and inflation costs?
Great. Impossible.
Great take, Travis. In fact, the county has already said the cost would be 5x what they're paying to rent and lease the JCPenney spot. The take on Twitter from about 40 people has been the parking issue, the fact that they're expanding parking. Mm-hmm. And that's really turned a lot of folks off. What's your take on this? Because I know you follow the news.
Yeah, big time. So I would say that, every square foot that's dedicated to parking is a square foot that's not dedicated to housing. And you talk all the time about a lack of inventory, and that is something that I feel a squeeze on. I doubt that houses in 10th and Page would be going for $600K if we had a little more roofs in the neighborhood, in the community. So.
Well, and a good example of this, you rode your bike here.
Yeah, I rode my bike here.
Do you and your fiance have a car?
Yeah, we do.
One car among two?
So when we lived in DC, we lived separately at first, so we both had 2 cars. I've been thinking about selling mine at this point. I use hers when I need to go somewhere, and I recently got a bike, which I'm pumped about because I can drive anywhere I need to go.
And do you bird scooter rental, or do you own the scooter?
I don't know. I'm not a scooter guy.
Oh, not a scooter guy. Okay,
No.
I thought I saw you scooter the first time here.
Oh, no.
You walked.
I walked on over.
You walked.
That's
Okay,
right.
you walked. Do you think the everyone's renting mindset, whether it's your clothes, your food, your music, your streaming, your content, what's the long-term impact of that for Americans?
The long-term impact
For our culture
is that, frankly, I don't see it as sustainable. I don't see it as something that can continue, really. And I'm really not sure if people have a plan to land this plane, or if we're just hoping to keep staying up. And it worries me. It certainly worries me.
Kevin Higgins says this, King of Greenwood, I think the University of Virginia will soon get in the private home business, purchase property, and rent them out to employees as a subsidy. Rent comes right out of the payroll. In my opinion, they will be doing this as the area's largest landlord in the next 5 years. That's a good take from the King of Greenwood.
Sure.
You want to respond to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen. However, you got to think long-term about that, too. It might be great for associate professors, maybe even people on tenure track, but how are those families going to build long-term equity if they aren't owning the land that they live on?
Or play devil's advocate with you.
Sure.
For the sake of a talk show. Mm-hmm. Home ownership is not for everyone.
I mean, is there more? Is it just
That's
home
it?
ownership is not for everyone?
You can go in a lot of ways for that. You can go in a lot of ways, because I'm sure you've heard that before.
I have heard that before.
Yeah.
And I've heard it mostly from people who own homes.
There you go. That's a great response. That is a great response. Keep going. Don't hold back, Danny.
Yeah, I've heard that mostly from people who own homes. I've heard that from a lot of people who own 2 homes and rent out the second one. Hey, it's not for everyone. Why don't you pay me? And I would say that anyone who is trying to tell you that there's a problem and also selling you the solution might have a bit in play in that game. But I would say that consistently throughout American history, the biggest influencer of generational wealth, like if you want a better life for your kids, you better own some land. Like that is the golden rule of American history. And you look at it through the federal land grant acts in the 1800s that let a lot of, you wonder how all these people in Texas are oil billionaires. It's because they got land for free from the federal government in 1830, and then 40 years later, turned out oil was real valuable. And they're out there with their billions of dollars, and then everyone else is still renting.
Judah Whitcar, get a 3-shot ready to go, because it sounds like you have a take for the audience. Give us the thumbs up when you're ready to offer that take. Danny O'Day, a guest public author, one of the most well-read guys we know, a man who follows content in the community quite closely. Judah Whitcar is in like Flynn.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Danny is saying, and it is true that buying a home is not for everyone. Not everybody wants to deal with replacing HVAC units and hot water heaters and stuff like
Roofs.
that.
Yeah.
But it's also true that you're actively missing out on incredible, probably the best way to save money. Mm-hmm. We all know what happens when you put your money in a savings account. You lose
nothing.
Not nothing. You lose money.
Yeah.
Because even if you're getting a marginal.
Sure, we know. Yeah.
Interest is gonna. Not interest.
Inflation's gonna erode your savings.
It's gonna erode it away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's true. And then, I'm just looking at something. The Federal Reserve mentioned in the last few months that corporate profits have surged 25%. That's the largest gain since 1976.
Yeah, there's no question that big business is making more money than ever, and they're passing it on as inflation.
Meanwhile, we have the highest inflation in 40 years.
Yeah, they're passing on inflation as the reason for escalating costs for the consumer, but the reality is their margins are just getting fatter. Now, that's not the case for Main Street. That might be the case
Right.
for Fortune 500
Right,
and
right.
bigger,
I'm
but
not-
not mom and public. Daniel Kaufman at Public
No.
ain't making more money right now.
I'm definitely not talking about mom and pop shops and.
But hey, that 20% hike on the
small
cheeseburger
business
might have
owners.
something to do with it.
The 20% hike on the cheeseburger. Anyone have a take on that? I mean, that's a pretty substantial increase for a cheeseburger.
It's also
20% increase.
It's also the first time they've raised the
In
price
14 years.
14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to McDonald's point, then you jump in here. It's like the Costco mindset with the rotisserie chicken. The rotisserie chicken doesn't change in price at Costco. Costco's losing money on the rotisserie chicken. It's the
To get
loss
you in the
leader
door.
to get you in the door. The
Yeah.
cheeseburger not changing price for 14 years. I remember when I launched this business 15 years ago, I literally was dead broke. Like going through my friends' couches for change to get a double cheeseburger that was $1.06. Because it was rich in protein and calories. Often that was my meal for the entire day. The 20% increase in the cheeseburger, I'm very curious what's in the brain for DOD.
Well, I think that the story of inflation obviously is a very complicated one, and I think that obviously the shock to food stuffs, especially in Europe. I mean, there's a reason why it's happening in the UK. The shock to the supply in grain, in cattle, in everything that's happening in Europe because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I mean, a week ago they said that they were on the verge of a ceasefire, and then the next day they bombed a grain field in western Ukraine. And I think that obviously has a lot to do with it. But I think that, I think I put this comment on the show the other day. You can't open the Wall Street Journal these days without seeing a C-suite executive say, hey, I mean, we used this as cover. We opened up the floodgates and raised some prices, or we, shrunk our tube of toothpaste down 20%, kept charging the same price, and now here we are, record profits. Isn't that great? They're very open about it. I mean, they're not doing anything, they might be doing something wrong, but they're not doing anything illegal. It's certainly within their rights, and if the price is going up everywhere, I mean, get some extra cash out of it.
Great take. Check out, for example, guys, the size of a Snickers bar.
Yeah.
Eat a Snickers bar, go to a grocery store, look at the size of one Snickers bar, and you will see a piece of candy that was reminiscent of the size of candies that you were getting at Easter or Halloween, the mini ones. Now that's the size of the legitimate Snickers bar. They've shrunk the size and they've increased the price, which is fat in the margins. Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy is watching the program, and she says, it's astounding to me that 10th and Page is already that high in valuation.
Yeah.
In the summer of 2013, I canvassed the entire neighborhood. So this is 9 years ago she did this. I canvassed the entire neighborhood of 10th and Page and interviewed approximately 65 homeowners for AHIP and LEAP. AHIP since rehab 45 plus homes to make them more energy efficient, and so the homes stay in the family legacy. Unfortunately, one man came in and convinced many people to sell their homes to him. I hope we all utilize 10th and Page as a learning lesson where if resources are put into helping disenfranchised neighborhoods, the homes must stay in the family legacy. Your thoughts on that? That's a great take from Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy, DOD.
That is a great take. And, to kind of build off that, there are some, it's no secret that there are lost neighborhoods in this town. What happened to Vinegar Hill? It got torn down in the 60s. It displaced a lot of the Charlottesville's African American community. They went over to, I think it's West Haven, is where a lot of people ended up moving. But those used to be single-family residences, standalone dwellings where they lived for years and years and years and probably had every intention of passing it on to their kids. And what happened with that land? Well, I'll tell you, for 12 years, not a thing. Stood empty. And then eventually they built the Omni Hotel and the skate rink, which is now the Code Building. But for a long time, they just tore them down.
Danny O'Day is crushing it right now. A lot coming in. This on Twitter. What's a public safety operations center? The cops, Jerry? That was the question that was being asked by Elliot Harding on Twitter. Elliot, we need to get you on the show. The Esquire, who I saw the other day. I want to throw this to you.
Sure.
You're in your mid-20s. Mm-hmm. Your wife's a teacher, elementary school.
Fiance,
sorry. Soon-to-be wife.
Soon-to-be wife.
Do you think city of Charlottesville will be the long-term home where you raise your kids?
I certainly hope so. is something that we really want. I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to travel and be a lot of places in this country and in this world. And I will say there's not a lot of places that I know that truly love itself the way that Charlottesville loves itself. People love Charlottesville. And that's something that I feel really blessed to have been a part of for the bulk of my life, and something that I hope to continue to be a part of for the rest of it. So I really hope so. It's looking increasingly like that's going to be more difficult than I'd like it to be. But I really, really hope so.
You said, as we were prepping for the show, that you wanted to respond to that gender-neutral bathroom topic that came up.
Right, yeah. Actually, I took a couple notes before coming here on that topic, if I could.
Sure, please.
Trans children are more than 2 times as likely to be bullied or not attend class because they feel physically unsafe. They're also more than 2 times as likely to attempt suicide. Laws are being introduced in Tennessee to allow basically nearly everyone who is adjacent to a school administration to sue families if a child uses an incorrect bathroom. And if we want to criticize proposed changes, I think we should also be able to defend vehemently the status quo and say, well, hey, we can't change anything because we're doing it right now. And if we can't say that, then maybe we should seriously, critically consider certain changes. And I think to say there might be a potential hypothetical danger that accompanies these changes, I think ignores the true and genuine reality that there is a danger right now with the status quo.
Great take from Danny O'Day. DOD dropping some knowledge bombs here. Do you expect, because you have the skill of vision, I see it already. Do you see that becoming the norm?
I think so. I think the model that Judah put up on the screen yesterday.
Do you still have that?
Yeah.
The rendering? If you get it back on screen, that would be fantastic for the viewers and listeners that are. Oh, it's on screen. Look at you, Judah Wickar. Well done.
Nice job, man.
Yeah, very well done, Judah.
I think the model that introduces is, I mean, it's basically a glorified hallway with some sinks. Like, I really understand the hesitancy that families have with it. I genuinely, I don't want to come across like I'm, on a soapbox or I'm better than thou. I'm not trying to. But with the rendering that's proposed, I can't see anyone having a problem with that, really, like in an actual day-to-day environment.
Travis Hackworth watching the program. As a former employee of a school system and with a wife and mother who also worked for one, it is increasingly hard for people in the salary range to afford housing that is market rate or an outright purchase. The missing middle of housing is an increasing sector that is needed and missing more and more, especially in today's climate. How about, because you guys would be considered 2-income, mid-20s, you guys undoubtedly would be considered middle class in income.
I'd think so.
Would you not feel, and this is a question for everybody here, how pinched does the middle class feel now?
Well, you have to consider that every, even remotely, desirable area, even if it used to be regional, like a regionally desirable area, like if you lived in Stanton and you were a young person, you might want to move to Charlottesville. We're now on a global market for everything, with Airbnb, with the rise of social media and influencers traveling to different places and highlighting them. We're now competing with the global market for everything. And I can tell you what, I feel that planning a wedding in this town, let me tell you.
You're doing a wedding in this town?
We're trying, man.
Have you picked a venue?
Yeah, we're going to.
Patrick Flood is giving you props, by the way.
Hey, Patrick. Yeah. How you doing, man?
Yeah. What venue are you planning?
We're planning on King Family Vineyards.
Damn, that's one of the best ones.
Oh, it's beautiful.
May I ask venue price?
You may.
Is it 20,000 over 20K?
No, thank God. We're a little bit off peak, so we're going to be at 11.
So you're 11K just for the facility, the venue?
Just for the facilities, but I tell you, there are a lot of venues in this town that are 17, 18, 20 something thousand.
11K, what time of year?
It's going to be in mid-late November.
Okay, so definitely out of wedding season.
We're out of peak. It's not a June wedding. And that probably would have cost
probably
a little
2x that for the wedding, for a June wedding. So 11K for a November wedding, just venue. Mm-hmm. What is included with the 11?
Well, this is part of the reason why we chose them, because it's got a beautiful ceremony place. It's got a beautiful reception room as well. But it's the venue. It is the venue and chairs and tables, which I did not realize was a separate and incredibly expensive cost.
Profit Center, chairs and tables, no doubt about that.
Big one.
So what's total budget?
I went into this expecting not to spend north of, 10, 15, and I had that shocked, and it's probably going to end up being close to double that, probably going to end up hitting 30K, and, luckily, my fiance works at King Family, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of a discount on the wine there. It's a shock, the amount that weddings cost. We were talking with the event coordinator at King Family Vineyard. His name's Juan. He's a fantastic guy.
His name's Juan?
Juan, yeah.
Okay.
He's fantastic guy. And he was telling us that he often is on calls with families from Oregon, Washington State, California, that take a look at the website, call in, and put down a deposit sight unseen.
Get out!
Never been to the East Coast.
Oh my God. Really?
Kid you not.
How does the local compete with that?
Exactly, and that's what it is for.
And that's just a microcosm of so much.
That's what I'm trying to say. That is really, really going in onto one specific industry. But with Airbnbs, how many houses are Airbnbs in this town? I have personally been into a couple of Airbnbs when friends visit. And it is very obviously set up that this house is an Airbnb. It's not a home that people live in and rent out. Like, it has signs up and welcome to the Airbnb and everything. How much of our housing market is being depleted from an unserious demand? Is that a real demand on our housing market? Because I can't afford a house.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate with you, for both of you. Judah, get that 3-shot ready to rock and roll here. City of Charlottesville doesn't have any Airbnb police right now. The City of Charlottesville does not have anyone enforcing Airbnb regulations. And the regulation for the City of Charlottesville is you have to live in the house at least half the year for it to be a legal Airbnb. And then you got to register it with the city so city gets its juice, so the city gets its money. Okay, it's TOT. There is no Airbnb police in the City of Charlottesville. The reason I know that, and I'm sure you follow her as well, Molly Cogner, Socialist Dog Mom on Twitter, literally did a thread where she was calling out illegal Airbnb owners.
I saw that. I loved that.
I loved it too. She was calling out, she did a thread on Twitter of illegal Airbnbs. So here's the question. Is it illegal if no one's enforcing it? Or is it the gray area that entrepreneurs choose to pursue to run businesses?
I think legality doesn't change because nobody's
enforcing it. I'd say so too.
If no one's going to pop you, what's going to stop you?
That's a good question about morality.
Yeah,
and I think it's something that we need to look at ourselves about. Some people just are amoral. But I think most of us, I think some people get blinded by the money. A lot of the Airbnb owners are probably local, and I'm sure a lot of them are from out of city or out of state as well. But they hear about, you get all these I'm sure people are looking at these influencers on Instagram. I made all this cash last year from my
Airbnb.
Not working. Not working.
Airbnbs.
People are renting homes to Airbnb them. They're not even buying them anymore.
Yeah,
Airbnb arbitrage.
I've been seeing that.
Yeah. And the landlord doesn't care as long as he gets his rent.
Yeah.
And the exposure's passed to the tenant. Keep going. Keep rocking and rolling there, J-Dubs.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. At some point, we have to, can you stop it? Is there any way to stop it? You can't stop people from making investments. We were talking about rent prices going up, and you made the point that you have no choice, but you've got to follow the trend.
Danny O'Day?
Is that the same thing with Airbnbs?
I think the rent price is increasing is in a different category than illegal Airbnbs. Because to your point, the illegal Airbnb is still illegal. Your guys are 100% right. I posed the question just for the sake of conversation. I know that breaking the rules, even if no one is there to enforce them, is still breaking the rules.
Right.
But raising rents to market rate is different than an illegal Airbnb. Do you agree? Thoughts? Let's get DOD's take here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're very clearly different things. But I think that is another separate question. And, to bring it back to the top, rent keeps going up. I mean, how are you going to build that savings? How are you going to own anything ever?
And we need you in the community. We need you and your soon-to-be wife, your beautiful fiance in the community. We need the Danny O'Days and the Mrs. O'Days in the community. We need you guys. The last thing I want,
we want to be here.
I know. The last thing I want is a homogenous old community of wealth.
Yeah, and I've got something to. I mean, I definitely have a lot of bones to pick with the NIMBYs. I really do. But the one that I really find baffling is that a long-term study has shown that the average value of homes in a area that has been rezoned actually outpaces the market rate. And so people who are saying, "Oh my gosh, if they build more, my home value is going to go down." It isn't. It's going to outpace market rate by 5%. Like, what are you really concerned about? And I feel like they don't have a lot of good answers to it.
Comments coming in fast and furious. Neil shares this for Danny. He said in 2016, we projected $52.5 million annually, the wedding economic impact on the community. And he shares a link to the Free Enterprise Forum. That's 2016. That's 6 years ago. That number's even higher. Neil, what's the prediction? And he also is one of the co-owners of Well Hung Vineyard, so he knows the industry inside and out, not only covering it. What's the economic impact in 2022, Neil? Do we know the number for the wedding industry in Central Virginia? I would love to know that number.
I wouldn't be surprised if it doubled.
I would not be surprised if it doubled. I heard Hazy Mountain, new to the game.
Yeah.
They started with a venue price of around $4, and I've heard that's 4x.
It's about 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Think about that.
Between 16 and 20, depending on the
And
season.
you checked. Did you check?
Yeah. We were looking at everything.
Yeah. 16 to 20, and it started at 4.
That's crazy. I mean, it's nuts. And I've got my separate issues with Hazy Mountain. But I actually published an article about last summer in Seville Weekly about Hazy Mountain. They came under the guise of a farm bill, of the Virginia Farm Bill, with the intent of being taxed as a farm bill, and then quickly built 2,000-foot venue spaces and a parking lot the size of Scott Stadium. And I think that the Farm Bill, this is again, to bring it back to the Airbnb thing, it's people who see holes in the good faith intent of a law and say, hey, in that hole I can make a whole lot of cash. And they sit right in there. I'd say that the farm bill, like the lower taxes on farm estate, was designed, and pretty explicitly, so that people out in Crozet can sell some eggs or some honey at the farmer's market. It wasn't designed so people could buy 200 acres of a mountain, tear down all the trees, give the runoff to their neighbor's horse farm, and say, hey, we're open for business, $20,000 a wedding.
Danny O'Day. Wow, bringing it, DOD. What else is in that notebook? That's why we have this guy in the show. He comes prepared with the ammunition here. We just have to get him talking. DOD, I know you got something else over there.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about inflation and the story of inflation, and how we think about it. I think is determines how we address it.
Is this Biden administration and the recession definition? Is that where you're going with this?
Don't get me started on that one, man.
Because I thought that was a little slippery. What was your take on that? Did you see that, by the way?
I saw the
clip?
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I read a lot about it afterwards.
I found that bogus. You buy that or no?
No, of course not.
You thought it was bogus?
Of course, yeah, of course I did.
It is bogus.
It's bogus.
Calling out politicians for lying is like calling out snakes for having scales.
Of course. But it makes you lose credibility. It makes loses.
You know what? Biden has wanted nothing in his life more than to be the most loved person in America, and he assumes. I think he assumes that being elected president means that. And the truth is that the winning of the 2020 election is more that Trump is the most hated person in
Sure.
America, and not that Biden is the most loved one.
I'll give you
and
that.
I think he's still kind of reeling with coming to terms with that. Joe Biden is, I mean.
Good take. Good take. The inflation take. You're killing it right now, dude.
Thanks. So inflation, as we tend to understand it, is graphed along, and I'm going to have to go into a little bit of economics.
Please do.
All right?
Show is yours.
Is graphed along something called the Phillips curve, which is a relation of unemployment to inflation. And the theory is that the closer you get to zero unemployment, the higher inflation gets. But the truth is that over the last 40 years, basically since the Reagan administration, when you try to graph those two against each other, the inflation rate versus the unemployment rate, nothing matches up. It's all over the place. I mean, for the last 12 years up until COVID, we had relatively low inflation and very, very, very low unemployment. Historically speaking, very low unemployment. And economists, they can't make heads or tails of this. And the truth is that like inflation isn't just when there is more money and so now the money is worth less. It's more on the other side of things. It's when prices go up. And prices can go up for a whole lot of reasons, like say 1 million people who used to be blue collar workers die over the course of a year and a half. That could cause inflation to go
No doubt.
up. Or when,
You're talking cost of goods production, and when you don't have the personnel, prices go up because they
Exactly.
don't have enough labor to make the goods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if we keep telling a story that the inflation is caused because 2 years ago we gave everyone a $1,200 check, and that's why inflation is.
That didn't help.
I'm not saying that didn't help.
Okay.
But inflation rate over the last year has been something like 8.5%. And by most reputable economists that I've been able to read, that accounts for about 1 to 2% of inflation. That is
The
big.
stimulus money?
The stimulus money.
Okay.
That counts, and that's not nothing. But then there's 6.5% that's unaccounted for. And as long as we tell the story about that 1%, we're leaving the story of the 6% to dry. And to say that it's all about giving these people like a little extra help when they really needed it, then we say, well, then hell, maybe we shouldn't help people at all. And that's the logical conclusion. That's the brother of that first thought, is maybe we shouldn't help them when they need it. And I don't like that. I don't like that brother. I think that he's a bad one. And we should consider, hey, McDonald's having 20% profit margins above expected, and hey, they're also increasing their burger price 20%. The hell's up with that? That's, I think, the story that we really should be talking about.
Judah. Dude's on point.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, everybody's saying that that this inflation is from the last couple of years. I see in all these areas of discussion, so many people just looking at one tiny little area of the world or the situation. And I mean, you've got to take so many more things into account. The fact that the Fed started buying up all these really crappy MBSs at the end of
Mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah,
That's
when
right.
when they bailed out the banks, 13, 14 years ago. The fact that inflation is a constant. Of course, it's higher now.
Yeah.
But it's not like we've ever not had inflation.
Yeah, we never started 2007 and got to 2008 with the same level of inflation.
Yeah. So, and people that act like, I'm not a Joe Biden fan, but this is not his fault. It's also not the fault of Putin or the war in Ukraine. I mean, all of these things have an effect, but that doesn't mean that they are the effect.
That's right.
And so, like you said, you can't just talk about something that caused a quarter of this current rise in inflation and say that that's the problem, and once we fix it, everything's going to be okay. Because it's not. And that's why, when we all of a sudden get a raise in the stock market, it doesn't mean that they've fixed the problem.
That's right.
When the Fed raises interest rates, 75 basis points, that's okay. Things might go down or go up. Things might change, but they haven't fixed the problem.
That's right.
Kevin Higgins, calling you DOD. DOD is exactly right. That's the best comment on this show in a long, long time on your Biden take. In fact, I'm seeing that from a handful of people, and they're referring to you as DOD, which I freaking love on your Biden take. You don't have to answer this if
Sure.
you don't want to.
Yeah.
Have you felt more of a pinch than you're feeling right now with the dollar and financially in the history of your life? Now, granted, that sample size, you're 26.
Yeah.
So let's call it 8 years adult. Have you felt more of a pinch now than right now?
I can't really say that I have. I'm perfectly fine being candid about my financial situation. I recently had to do a lot of physical therapy for a leg injury that I sustained in a car accident. And then I moved from DC to Charlottesville. And all that took place in the span of 4 to 5 months. And that ended up being a financial hit that was much larger than expected. And one that when I look at the housing market, I'm wondering, and this is a genuine thought, and I'm sure a lot of Americans are having this thought, should I not have gotten my leg fixed? Like can I afford to have my leg fixed? That's a thought that I feel like a lot of Americans probably have to have every now and then. When you get, I don't know, you drop something on your toe when you're fixing your car, you think to yourself, shoot, like, is it rent or is it the hospital?
And is that where you were?
Well, I consider myself to be a very, very lucky and very, very fortunate person. And we were able to make things work, and I'm all better.
We're glad.
I'm all better. But yeah, I remember like driving over to physical therapy and thinking, wow, like this, like if I were in a less financially secure place, this could really be a tough decision to make.
I like it. DOD, showing vulnerability and insight here in the program. How about, 1:30. How about some final words here? J-Dubs, anything on the crawl that you want to get out there? No pressure if nothing on the crawl. I know DOD's got something to rock and roll for a final take.
I found an awesome picture of somebody's drawing of a personal map to Keswick.
Oh, let's see it. You're going to put it on screen?
Yeah.
What struck you from this as you do the play-by-play announcing here? It's going to be on screen. Judah's going to let us know when that's on screen. You found this on the Charlottesville Reddit board?
Yeah.
Okay, Charlottesville Reddit board.
There's not much of a play-by-play. It's just a hand-drawn map from like the 1950s.
Is that on screen now?
Yeah,
it's on screen.
now.
Everyone look at the screen.
And it's got a little circle for Charlottesville where 250 crosses, and then there's a little train heading up to Shadwell.
The artist in you appreciated this map, Judah. Is that what it is?
Yeah, there's a little of that, and
Okay.
it's just it's a fun little. There's a guy with a straw hat, I guess, pointing the way to the Keswick Country Club.
Looks like a fox with a shotgun.
Yeah.
and riding boots.
And cello. I mean, it's just a cool little piece of history.
Eastern Albemarle
I love
County
that.
in the spotlight here on the I Love Seville show. DOD, the show is yours.
Am I talking us out? Or?
Sure. Final word for us, DOD. You have carte blanche. We rarely do that.
Well, first of all, let's get that sports center in town. I couldn't agree more with that take at the top of the show. I just want to thank you all for having me here again today. I really appreciate that. Support your local businesses. Really look after those mom and pops because they'll look after you in the end. I can promise you right now that Jeff Bezos ain't gonna be there for you.
Well said. Well said. Bezos is worried about his yacht and his six-pack.
It's
And
stuck in the Netherlands. Where's it gonna go?
Yeah. They're not opening the bridge for my yacht. It's stuck in the Netherlands. Woe is me. Sorry, Jeff. Sorry.
Amazon is the devil.
Sorry, Jeff, that your yacht can't get out of the Netherlands. Danny O'Day is dynamite. We will welcome him back on the show, guys. He is fantastic. They can find your book where?
They can find the book on Barnes & Noble. They can find it at Bluebird Bookstop, Shop Local. Bluebird Bookshop just opened up in Crozet, Virginia, right next to Crozet Pizza. Local, just first local bookstop in Crozet, Virginia, and it's run by the loveliest people you'll ever meet.
Oh, he sent us photo to you, Judah, engagement photos. DOD in your inbox.
Happened just recently. I wanted to show off a little bit.
Oh, please, let's embarrass them. These are beautiful. Let's get this on screen. It looks like you had a secret photographer.
That's right. That's right. Up at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland.
And was it raining?
It was pouring rain.
Oh, these are fantastic photos.
She almost said no. I made her walk a mile in the rain to get there.
How did you get the photographer to go with you to Ireland?
Oh my gosh! So I have cousins in Ireland.
Okay.
Who I stayed with. Shout out to Mary Kelly Finn and Kevin Finn. Thank you so much for hosting us. If y'all are watching, and they recommended a local photographer in Ireland, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, this is my plan. Can you help me out?" And she was game from the start. Couldn't have been better.
These photos are awesome. Let us know when those are on screen. We got to memorialize this engagement with some pictures. I especially like the one where you guys are smooching. The love is palpable. It is evident. And what better backdrop than what's the backdrop?
Those are the Cliffs of Moher in County Clare, Ireland.
Beautiful. You got them on there.
They're coming.
They're getting up there on screen. Judo, give us the thumbs up. I'm not ending the show until Danny O'Day's engagement photos are on screen, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a cause for celebration. You outkicked the coverage. She's a beautiful lady.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
First
I'm very, very lucky.
Get them both on screen. Do a quick flip of the photography. DOD. Mr. Romance right here. You're looking jacked on this button-down shirt, too. Showing some pecs over here, Danny O'Day. Is number 2 on? Can we get 2 on screen, please?
And 2 is up.
The second photo. Look at the screen. That's love right there, ladies and gentlemen.
You sure that's not from the Notebook? Or?
Yeah, this is straight from Hollywood. Tinseltown's finest over here. Look at the leading lady and the leading actor right there, the O'Days. I love it.
Love you, Melanie.
Melanie, you're a beautiful lady. Congratulations. Danny O'Day is awesome. We will welcome him back on the show. We congratulate him on his engagement. He may be getting married at King Family. Yes, he said that earlier in the show. If you're going to do some wedding crashing, we know the event is in November. No, just joking. Please don't crash Danny O'Day's wedding. Please,
more the merrier.
Please don't crash Danny O'Day's wedding. Juan is not going to like that. Do not crash Danny O'Day's wedding. For the fabulous Danny O'Day, the wordsmith extraordinaire, for Judah Wickhauer, the jack of all wits, this is the I Love Siebel show on a glorious Wednesday in Central Virginia. My name is Jerry Miller. What's Barking Local at 3 o'clock. Thank you kindly for joining us today. Take care, everybody. Dan, you killed it.
That was awesome.
It was
so much
awesome.
fun, man.
I love when you come here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for having me back.
Our pleasure.